Today, November 14th, 2022, bring this planning board meeting to order. First item on the agenda, the approval of the minutes of September 26th, 2022.
Motion to accept the minutes for the September 26th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Item B, committee reports, administrative action under committee reports. Any committees? Mr. Chapa?
Yes, the elementary school building committee had a meeting on last Thursday. Few things to report. They received their substantial completion and temporary C of O on schedule. I think it was due on November 8th, something like that, but anyway, that's been achieved. They're working on a substantial punch list, but right now, everything is all set for move-in. Furniture, right, they're sending boxes to the teacher classrooms right now, getting ready for packing and whatnot. They're scheduling tours for the teachers to see their classroom so they can take an appropriate amount of equipment and other needs into the new classrooms. They are planning on, the elementary school building committee / school department are planning on having an open house for the town departments. And I'm not sure if that's the same as a ribbon cutting ceremony, something like that, but a formal walkthrough of the school, probably, January, February, once everything's operational. I did want to make a couple of points. I know that, we recently at special town meeting, we have approval for the new DPW, and I know some of the concerns that were voiced by the residents of Tewksbury during that meeting were, why are we voting for this new project? We don't know where we stand with the elementary school. So I did want to report that the center school has had approximately $2.5 million in change order work against a construction budget of $76.7 million. A lot of the change order work was additional equipment, things like that, FF&E packages and so forth. But regardless of that, the change order percentage is 3.25%. In general, private construction, a change order percentage of 5% or better is typically considered an exceptional project, with an average being at around 10%. So for a public project that was designed and built throughout the pandemic, massive inflation, supply chain issues, all of that, that we're coming in under budget with a very low percentage of change orders to the project, hopefully gives some confidence to the residents of the town that that we are performing our construction projects with fiscal responsibility and with keeping our budgets on track and our schedules on track. And that's all. I hope everybody gets a chance to see it. It's a really nice building.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, are we looking to open up again in January? Is that this proposed date, right after Christmas?
The district offices will be open in December and occupied, and the students will be in school in the new Center Elementary School when they return from winter break in January.
Great. Awesome. That's great news.
Good.
That's it.
Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Champer, I just want to say thank you for your involvement with the school building committee, you and the rest of your team members over there. And the success of a project of that magnitude depends on a whole lot of things, including pre-construction reviews and oversight, and contractor selection, and a lot of stuff goes into a successful project. And I just want to say thanks for your work and your oversight on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I keep getting messages here. Oh, this is from New Hampshire, where they have another meeting. Next item on the agenda, town planners report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of quick things. Glad Mr. Champa had more details on the elementary school project than I had because mine was limited to they received their temporary occupancy and are still on target for their move-in date, so just reiterating that. Other than that, a couple of other project updates. 1866 Main Street, La Vida Dolce Bakery. After some initial delays, they're making substantial progress on their build-out. The building commissioner and health department said that things are coming along nicely at this point. No target opening day as of late. 836 Main Street, the old Mirabellas. The owner is working with a new architect and submitted revised kitchen plans at the end of October. And they have submitted additional materials that were requested since then, and they're working towards finalizing their building permit for the full renovations of the bakery. No estimated opening date for those folks yet either. 1800 Main Street for Starbucks. Excuse me, building, fire, and health went out for inspections last week, and they have a few remaining issues with sewer and water connections that are being worked out. I'm going to be going to Starbucks on Wednesday with the building commissioner to do a walkthrough, any day, hopefully. If anybody's had the chance to drive by, it looks really nice from the outside, hopefully we'll be able to get inside soon. The joint meeting with the select board that was originally scheduled for tomorrow evening to discuss the MBTA communities legislation with the select board and NIMCOG has been rescheduled to Tuesday, December 20th due to some scheduling conflicts. That was confirmed earlier today. And then item number 3, just looking at some items that weren't discussed due to our last meeting being canceled. There were some correspondence received to the board regarding the new policy for outstanding as-built and project bonds. And I spoke to the building commissioner, and he still supports occupancy being tied to as-built and final acceptance from engineering and planning departments, and he proposes that we take a nuanced approach, and it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all for each project. It's not meant to be punitive. If projects are phased, if they're getting occupancy in the winter, those kinds of things will be taken into account, just so folks are aware. Let me see here. And we also received a press release from the Soldier On Group, the proponents for the 1660 Main Street 21-unit veterans home on over on Main Street there. And they announced that the John Bon Jovi Foundation, along with the Patriots Foundation and the Kraft Foundation, are going to be contributing substantial funds to the completion of this project, so that's really exciting that we're gonna have a little bit of star power behind that. Other than that, I think that's all I have, and just for folks in the room, I am taking class this evening, so I'm gonna be quietly stepping out at a certain point, so if you see me, don't be concerned.
Okay. Very good, Alex, thank you, and thank you for getting on board with the Soldier On. That gives us a lot of information now. And,
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment, if I could.
go right ahead.
So I just had a couple questions for you. I seen the letter from the gentleman from Pinnacle Construction regarding the as-built and what we discussed, and I kind of agree with them in a lot of ways. I mean, we've done this for a while, and through no fault of yours, some of those as-built bonds were not finished, and the as-built plans, the as-built plans weren't finished, but I mean, you've got a handle on this pretty well, I think, as far as being up on a lot of this stuff, and I'm not sure whether we should be changing those plans, because it seems like it's an undue pressure on the builders to get the as-bills, finished, and maybe in a phased construction type of thing we could do, and still hold bonds, but.
Sure, there was a discussion between myself, the building commissioner, the town engineer, and we discussed with, we got some builder input as well. And that particular builder that we spoke with was open to doing something like substantial as-built, where you're having the things that really need to be there before you can even get occupancy on the building. We're talking about the drainage, the utilities, and the really important bits, and maybe an 80%, just to kind of throw a number out there. Stuff that would really have to be in place before occupancy could be granted. We're not asking for the final trees and cut grass to be on the as-built that they submit before occupancy, but just to make sure that the really important things that the engineering department needs to know for, responding to any kind of emergencies, that those things are documented well. And perhaps holding a bond for the rest of the as-built, but not the whole thing, because that has proven so far to not really work.
Yeah, the finished paving, the landscaping and all that stuff. I mean, you don't want any trucks in there, I'm sure, you know, it just doesn't make sense having the finish done before, you know, the actual finish, but, so I thought maybe we could review that, Mr. Chairman, and board members as well, as far as getting a final on that. I think we kind of rushed through that, but, I think we need to take another better look at that if we could, you know, before we finalize things.
I think the way, sorry, Mr. Duffy, I think a way we could do that is to look at, you know, Mr. Johnson at the meeting where you folks have voted to approve that as a provision, said that we'll wait until the new year so that folks have had time to understand that that's something we're working towards.
Sure.
And maybe take the first site plan review, for instance, like, you know, a brand new, from the ground up construction, the first one that comes through in the new year, and start very early talking about what that guarantee structure would look like with that, for that particular project, because anything that's already in progress now, it doesn't make sense to, like, as Mr. Johnson had said
Yeah,
previously,
right.
to start implementing it in the middle of discussions, but, you know, a project comes to us on the docket for January 9th, hopefully, if the schedule's approved, and there's a site plan review, empty lot, and they have to do everything from the beginning, the drainage, the utilities, everything. That would probably be a good way to start having a working discussion about what the as-built guarantees would look like.
Yeah, okay.
Alex, would it be fair to say that like a roundtable discussion with the building inspector, he would feel that if life safety items were concluded, it would be a lot easier for him to sign off on something temporarily. Would
I
that
think
be
so,
fair?
public safety and like I mentioned, the utilities
Yeah.
and any other important infrastructure that's incorporated into the site, if those things are accounted for, I think the final finishes and, you know, bits and bobs can kind of be caught,
Very
you know,
good.
over the following, and sorry, if
That's okay.
and then maybe putting a finite amount of time to get the as-bills that have everything on them, the landscaping and what have you. Maybe, you know, a 6-month period or something, say, okay, you submitted your interim as-built, you have your occupancy, but to ensure that your occupancy isn't revoked, we need the final as-built by X date. And then, you know, we're not gonna punish anybody if it gets to be, you know, a month out and things are like, oh, I need like one more month, then maybe you grant an extension as applicable, but really trying to put more solid timelines, because that's the other problem with the as-built collection really, is that it's just, because it's not tied to anything of consequence, really, other than whatever performance guarantee the person puts up, or the group puts up, there's no, if you don't do it by X date, that's why a lot of them were outstanding for years after occupancy was granted, and that's kind of what we're trying to reel in. So I think a holistic approach and you know, an informative approach to each project as they come through is gonna be more than reasonable.
Very good,
I
Alex,
think a
thank you.
cash bond is probably a good answer, because they're
Yes.
not gonna be walking away from these projects if they have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in cash on the table still. They wanna get that cash back. A line of credit's a whole different story.
They expire.
They can get that, right, they can get that pretty easily, but, you know, cash on the table is a different story.
And now I'm done cutting off Mr. Duffy.
Thank you.
Mr.
A couple of quick questions on that. So, you know, I don't disagree with you there, Mr. Fatalia, but the problem is that once, as time goes by, every time the underground utilities are covered up, now, and somebody has to backtrack and go back weeks, months, or years to try to remember or determine where the underground utilities are, therein lies the problem. So all this is an incentive, I believe, to try to get somebody to, you know, to try to get a development to, you know, to document the locations on the stuff. I mean, you know, we can walk in this building and say, oh, yeah, that light is where it's supposed to be. But, you know, you can't be so sure when you're talking about a water main to a sprinkler system or a drainage system or whatever, you know? So I think, and as far as the cash goes, it's really just, in many instances, just a math problem, you know? If it's cheaper to leave the money on the table, they'll leave it, and if it's not cheaper, then they'll get the engineer back and try to put the pieces of the puzzle back together. So, and then I wanted to ask you, Ms. Lauder, if I could, you know, what are other cities and towns doing in this area? Are they tying the as-bills to the CO?
Sure, so I put out a call to other planners in Massachusetts and the 3 communities that responded, some of them being rather close by, all tied to occupancy. Now, that's certainly not indicative of the state as a whole, or perhaps even the majority, but the only folks who responded did say occupancy and found that performance guarantees likewise were not as effective, and they tried to use them sparingly.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. One thing that we could try to do is, and I've seen this in a lot of specifications, again, being working for a subcontractor, that we could have a series of as-built packages, and we could apply one of them to the project based on initial discussions with the builder and the owner. And that package would say, we will, before we can assign occupancy, we will need underground utilities, in-wall utilities, above ceiling, all, you know, everything that, you know, would be not visible, everything associated with life safety, and then say, those will be tied with occupancy, the remaining as-built items will be tied to your cash bond.
I think that's
I
fair.
like that idea
And
myself.
so we can, I mean, it wouldn't take a lot for us to, you know, get some, again, kind of a round table with the building department, fire chief, whoever, say, okay, you know, before you're ready to sign off on a building, what do you need to see on that as-built? And I think we can, you know, so in some cases, if it's possible, we'd love to have the full as-built, but if they have the as-built 90% of the way, and what we can do, and we should try to do, is impress upon them the ease of maintaining the as-built as the project is being built. So it's incumbent upon the general contractor or the builder to be on their subs. Hey, when you're done, I want your as-built. And if they do that, it will make their job easy. Then they're giving up a lot of money for very little amount of remaining engineering or drawing updates. And that being the case, I think they'll want to get across the finish line more often than not.
Yep, I think that makes sense as well, and based on my discussions with the building commissioner and town engineer, both parties and the fire prevention officer, they have to go out at different stages of the project anyway to inspect things.
Right.
If they're remembering to call their engineer every single time one of those things is done before it gets buried, then, you know, that should be relatively easy, and I quite agree with you.
Right. Good, very good.
Should we put that on the agenda for another meeting or something, or after the first?
I
of the
think we
year?
should, absolutely. Alex, when you think it's doable, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
All right? Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, my other question to Alex was, how was the affordable housing meeting?
It was a small crowd, but a lively one.
Okay.
Lot
I
of
was-
good discussion. We did some vision boards, and there was some question and answer between myself and the NIMCOG reps and the attendees. And we came away with some interesting perspectives to incorporate into the housing production plan.
Okay, just curious, I wasn't here for that, you know that, so that's why I asked.
Good,
Thank you.
very good. Next item on the agenda, the 2023 meeting calendar. Gentlemen, I think you have it in your package. If there are any questions on that right now, let me know, let us know. If not, if you, after looking at it, you can review it with Alex. But before the things happen through the course of the year too.
Mr. Chairman, it looks fine to me, just as a sequential 2-week period, right through the year, and then meeting once in July and once in August, and then we pick it up again in September, October, November. We meet twice a month, and or more if needed, but dates look fine to me at this stage.
At this stage, right.
The Monday holidays were kind to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, right.
he's kept it right on par there as far as every 2 weeks just about, so that's great. So,
Good.
Mr. Chairman, the only one I took note of, and I know you're a regular participant yourself, is the meeting on September 11th. I know the
Yes.
town
Yep,
does an annual remembrance,
yes,
and I've seen in the past members of the planning board there, so I don't know if we want to try and schedule around it, as in earlier or later that evening.
Well, why don't
That
we,
was the only date that jumped out at me as, where there was something else significant going on in the town.
Yeah, I made note of that as well, and the only reason I did put it on that date is because if I put it on either end, it would have given us.
Throws
2 weeks
everything
in a
else
row.
up.
Yeah.
No, I saw it, but I just thought I'd make note of it.
why don't we, why don't you review that when it gets close?
Sounds great, Mr. Chairman.
Hopefully I'll be here to have to worry about that.
I know I won't be. There you go.
So do
Thank
we need a general consensus now as far as the dates?
Yes, please.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the dates as described in this meeting notice. And then if we have to do an adjustment down the road, we will accordingly. How's that?
Good, do we have a second? On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda. We have an A and R for 1201,
No, for.
oh, I'm sorry, no, approval not required. 40 Long Meadow Drive. Any, Mr. Cuco, how are you?
Hi, Mr. Chairman, thank you. For the record, Dick Cuco, Woodland Design, representing the owners at 40 Long Meadow Road. And we always start at 6:30 with the 9/11, so if that moved your meeting to 7:30, it should suffice, because we're usually not more than an hour unless you stay behind to pick up chairs.
Unless the lights go out.
Lights, please, the lights. The money we paid for that time clock, they should be working like a time clock. But anyways, I digress. We have a piece of property that's frontage on Long Meadow Road and Andover Street. The owners are trying to dispose of the property, and the abutter on Andover Street is going to procure 6 acres and add it to their property up on the West Havers land, and then the remaining of land will be left for at 1.89 acres. So what is map 26 lot 124, which is currently 8 acres, will become 1.89 acres, and map 26 lot 36, which is 1 acre, will become about 9 acres. So no new lots, just moving the line in between the two.
Board members? Any questions? Mr. Fratelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cuco, I have no problem with you. I know what you're trying to do here, just redraw the lines, the lot lines, and it seems pretty basic to me, and I have no problem with it. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Champa?
So I just wanna weigh in. So right now, parcel B, the 6.5 acres, that's gonna be added to lot 36?
You can see it, that's the original.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward to me, no questions, Chair.
Very good, thank you.
Gentlemen?
You want to look at your package, and we'll finish this up? Mr. Duffy?
I have no questions. I think I'm fine with that.
All right.
With the A and R.
And I am too. What's a motion on the,
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve to accept the approval not required plan for 40 Long Meadow Road as written.
Second.
any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, you can see where we are, Mr. Johnson.
All right. And apologies for my lateness. It's at the mercy of the commuter rail.
Oh,
I understand Mr. Baker has promised to put someone else in charge before he leaves, so.
Don't make it me, because he'd have to listen to me. Thank you. All right, so have the record show that I have arrived.
All right.
And I will pick up from here. So we're on to agenda item C, 1201 Main Street, use special permit. Have a motion to waive the public reading.
so moved.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Do we have somebody here for 1201? All right. Just state your name for the record. The floor is yours.
Well, good evening, all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Attorney Doug Sears, and I am here with Liz Cleaves, who's the proprietor of Auntie Dog Training Academy. And we are here looking for a special permit for an overnight
Sorry to
kennel.
interrupt, guys. I'm just having trouble hearing you on the mic. I'm just gonna move that closer to you guys.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yes, put that in the middle.
Is the mic on?
Yes, the mic is on because I was able to hear things right here. Sorry about that, guys.
Thank you.
let us know if you're all set.
Okay, we're looking for a special permit for an overnight kennel, boarding permit for up to 5 dogs to be at Auntie Dog on 1201 Main Street. This would be similar to, was it June 27th that we moved up from Coyotes was expanding or expressed interest in expanding. So we had to get another spot, and fortunately, we're up to 1201 Main Street, and it's a really nice spot that we're all over, the customers are very happy with, and it's very, very useful. And previously at 1487, there was up to 15 dog maximum kennel permit, and that today we were looking just for 4 or 5 dogs. It's an interior former office, and this is part of the camper program where. Which is a very significant portion of the business that Auntie Dog does. And we would like the board's approval to have that kennel permit.
Yeah, we're basically asking for a permit like we had at 1487. We literally gave our notice at 1487, signed at 1201, and the dog rules changed. And our overnight program accounts for 60% of our business. And it's something that we really need to remain in Tewksbury, which we work very hard to do that.
Very good. So, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I'm not sure if it's required of me to disclose publicly, but Auntie Dog did train my newest puppy. So I am familiar with the business. So, I don't know if that requires a recusement or not, but.
No,
Okay.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that wouldn't come because they train their dogs. And they
Thought that might be the case. So I guess, going from 15 down to 5, are you comfortable that that's the right number?
Yes, we never had 15 overnight at the studio. 15 dogs may be present on site during training hours, but we're looking for overnight for 5. We keep the program very small because it's a program that works. We only have 12 trainers, so to adequately train 5 dogs in a month-long program, we cap it at 5.
Okay, and I like that you included pictures of the kennel area, which would basically be the camping conditions. So, having read the packet, I had no further questions beyond all the information provided.
All right. Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious, the zoning allows for up to 8 dogs. Like, is there any reason why you're limiting yourself to 5?
No, I mean, if you want to allow me 8, I would take that. I would not currently have 8.
Yeah, it just seems like that they would might give you a little wiggle room there.
I appreciate that, yes.
And I would personally would be okay with that. Now I have kind of the question that came to my mind when I was looking at this is that you have all of these dogs overnight for the month program or whatever. The dogs have to go, and I've had a dog in the past, I don't have one now. But, the thing my wife hated the most was cleaning up after the dog. And dogs have to go for a walk and take care of their business and so forth, and I guess I would like to hear how you're gonna address that.
Well, that's actually more of an issue during the day as there are more dogs on site. But the dogs that arrive for training and stay with us, they're exercised throughout the town. The property at 1201, in fact, our landlord, Dr. Wu, is here, is very well maintained. We have a strict pickup after your dog policy for a dog that's with its owner, and certainly the trainers address that. We dispose of the dog feces in a very safe way. It hasn't been a problem with us here at all. We've been at 1201 since June 27th.
Okay. Does it get disposed with regular trash, I guess, at that
Yes.
level, you know?
Yeah, bagged properly you
Vanessa?
can.
Okay. All right. And I think that's my only, my only question.
And I think I had the privilege of training your grand dog.
Oh, which dog?
Golden.
Oh, you did?
That's your son.
Oh. Well, then I should disclose that as well.
I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I think it needs a refresher.
We have not seen him in a while.
There is a graduate program.
Now she might want you to recuse yourself.
Right. Thank you, that's all I have, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman. Thank you.
Natalia, anything for you to disclose?
Yes, no, well, I am a dog owner, I have an Airedale Terrier,
What kind of a terrier?
Airedale Terrier, so, I am a dog person and love what you do, and, a couple of questions I've had is, the outside training that you do,
Meaning
Yes.
outdoors, yeah.
yeah, outdoors, on the list here, it said 6 AM to 9 PM. Are those your hours of training?
It is.
It is, huh? Okay. Any issues with people coming to work at those times and using the parking lot and so forth, or?
No,
Okay. That was a concern of people coming to work at the,
myself and one of the other morning trainers usually arrive between 6 and 6:15.
okay,
Because our first dogs arrive at 6:30.
okay. Early birds, I guess,
Yes,
huh?
they are.
So, yeah, so that was my question as far as, I didn't know if you did training that early, so I guess you do, so.
We
It
might not
hasn't
be
been a problem in
outside
the
until
past.
the sun comes up, but we're in the studio.
Okay, all right, fine, sounds good. And how many dogs do training, 15 is it you have for training?
Well, we're permitted to have 15.
Okay,
So that includes dogs that are coming in and out for private lessons, which run 45 minutes to an hour. Dogs that are attending a group class, which is 55 minutes. Dogs that come just for the day, and then our overnight campers.
I got you. Enough space, what you have there, more space than you have there?
Yes, we
so-
actually doubled our space with the move to 1201.
Awesome.
Much
That's
more
good news.
usable space too. I might add.
Sounds great, so, almost done, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fowler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I have no questions, but I have a lot of compliments. I guess that kind of says where I'm going on this, but I've talked to PD, and they can do nothing but rave about you and your work. And all the other people, I've had 4 people call me today. Anybody in here call me today? Nope, there was no one here. But, you know, I can honestly say this. In all the years I've been here, very, very few times have I received phone calls. I've had board members say, I got 5 phone calls today, I got 15 phone calls on this. And I said, gee, I guess no one likes me because they don't call me. But anyways, I received 4 phone calls today. And they were so complimentary, and I could do nothing but wish you the best of luck in your new location. Dr. Lou, that's a fantastic building, and I'm sure it'll be put to good use with you. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have. Thank you.
Alright. So the chair is pretty much all set. I'll only just, I'll echo Mr. Dudley's comment that, I don't have any issue with doing up to the 8. It's, almost half of what you were allowed
Yeah.
before, so, it's not like we're suddenly doing something you weren't already doing before.
Right.
Just at a different site, or at least allowed to do at a
Yes.
different site, not that you necessarily have that many. So I have no issue with that. These other conditions, they're just standard, so I have no issue adding those in. Is there anyone in the audience, anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to close the hearing.
A motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to the permit. We have a motion on the use special permit.
Motion to issue the special permit with the changes that we've discussed here this evening.
Okay, so I'll just read them off the sheet, so we've got, there can be no more than 15 dog maximum for training. B, there can be no more than 8 dogs that are kept overnight, so we're
Correct.
allowing up to the 8.
Right.
There are no sleeping facilities allowed for staff, and the hours of operation for training is 6 AM to 9 PM. And unless anybody has anything else to add, that's it. Good?
That's it.
All right, so we have a motion made, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous, good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome,
Yep.
thank you. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item,
We're gonna lose 90% of our audience.
we'll give it a second for the room to clear and settle, and then we'll move on.
You had more for this one than anything.
How you doing?
Give me your phone number and I'll call you.
It was
Good
either
luck.
this or bring
Good
all
luck.
the dogs,
Good
thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All the happy dog owners.
See you when I see you.
Yeah, okay. Talk to
See you later.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item D.
Wish all the hearings could be like that.
Main Street continued from our October 31st meeting. Site plan review.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
Good evening.
board members. Dick Chuko from Woodland Design. We just got a letter, I just got it today, but I guess it came in Friday, holiday or whatever.
Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday from DPW. They still have a few issues, items that they would like us to address. They just added some new ones, October 28th. They would like additional test pits done in the area, which they had asked for that. When we were out there, they had to dig the sewer up to do the test for the sewer, which I'm happy to report there is no infiltration in the sewer out there. So they were very pleased with that, and so they said, okay, fine, you can move forward. And then there's a couple little housekeeping items that have to be taken care of. There's one item that, I don't know if we're gonna have to do the old WWF thing here or what, but they keep referring to a as-built plan dated March 17th of 2015. And all of our letters of transmittal and all of the record plans we have a date of April 14th, 2015, which is later than the 17th. So they're saying they don't have a copy of that plan. And I said, what difference does it make? The last plan was April 14th, 2015. We have a letter of transmittal to the DPW. We have a letter of transmittal to Mr. Sadwick, all with those same dates. So I don't know how we get around that, but, and the reason they don't have a copy of it is because there is no March 17th plan, or they would have had a copy of it. But anyway, at some point in time, you may have to put your striped shirt on and referee that one.
Well, let me just ask a quick question. Are they, the one that they have that you say is for April, does it include everything that they would be looking for had it been dated March 17th?
Well, there was a March revision on that plan, and then that was the fourth revision, and the fifth revision was on April 14th. And just to refresh some of your memories that were here, unfortunately, we had that project approved subject to the engineer's final review, and then that took another year, which we'll never do that again. So they got occupancy permit and they were able to build, so I'm assuming that the plan that was dated April 14, 2015 was approved by everybody, otherwise they wouldn't have got a building permit, so. But I think we can work that out with them, and we're gonna schedule the additional test pits. We're gonna try to do those this week. And they asked for us to do a land disturbance permit, so that I think is on your next meeting. So, but I didn't want to not show up and have you think that nothing was done, so.
All right, I'll just run around the table if anybody has any quick questions. Mr. Fowler?
I'm all set.
Champa?
Yeah, just the wording of what you had was, the town engineer is looking for an as-built plan regardless of date, March 17th, April 24th, did you say?
Yeah, the as-built plan, I think, was done in
Oh.
2019. That's a different issue.
But you would reference okay, so they're looking for the as-built plan, you're referencing the proposal plan,
Yeah, this
which was issued in order for construction to.
item number 1 on their punch list there. It says
Okay.
the applicant has provided additional plans, but none with the revision date referenced.
So which number is this, number 1?
Yeah. So their comment in bold letters says the applicant has provided additional plans, but none with the revision date reference. This comment remains. So I don't know how you solve that.
I mean, at some point, we have them bring a set of plans in and confirm that it meets what we said in the special permit. If that's, I mean, if it's gonna be that
Yeah, I
tough
mean,
of an issue.
normally it's a no-brainer that a later revision to a drawing would just be a better version and more
Right.
informative
More
version
detailed.
of the
Corrected or
drawing.
whatever, yeah, exactly.
So, you know, I guess I agree with Mr. Coco that we shouldn't get hung up on the date here. If they have a plan that shows all the relevant information, that, you know, we should review that and make that, enter that as the plan of record for the project. And, you know, hopefully without having to put on a striped shirt, we can resolve that particular comment line.
Well, but what I'm saying is though, is that between now and the next meeting,
Well, we already told them that.
it just get.
We sent them copies of the transmittal that says, copy of a plan dated 4/14/15, site plan with revised drainage. Sent to Mr. Sadwick, signed by Jeff Ryder. So,
So are we saying that the plan is lost, that the revised,
no, there is no, I have the records, I don't have any plan dated March 17th. I have a plan dated March 10th, and I have a plan dated April 14th, a month later, but I have no plan dated March 17th. So I don't know if it was a Scrivener's error or what, but there is no plan. There's no such plan. But the plan that you folks approved was, and they approved, was April 15th, and we delivered it to Mr. Sadwick on April 28th.
So that's the one that
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with just moving this forward. This has been going on for a long time, Mr. Cuco. Hopefully we can get this resolved at our next meeting and move forward, you know.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring that up is because, you know, usually we'd say, okay, we can answer this. You want more test pits? We do more test pits. You want us to test the sewer? We test the sewer. If you didn't like the parallel parking spaces, we're gonna paint over them. So anything that we can do, but I can't.
can't make up a plan.
So,
you don't
Mr.
have.
Cuco, let me ask you a question. Everything operational down at Wamisit Lanes at this present time? Right? I mean, there's no issues there, right? Correct? I mean, I've been in and out of the facility for a number of times, but
Well, I mean,
didn't seem to be any issues there as far as,
well, there's a comment like it says, you get 2 dumpsters out back that need to be enclosed. Well, those aren't dumpsters, those are cardboard recycled. They don't have the same Board of Health requirement. This facility, as you know, has an internal trash compactor and container. There's no trash outside. The only thing that's outside in the back of the building is for cardboard. So I don't see anything in the Board of Health regulations that say that the cardboard has to have the same requirement. But we will address that. We will check with Ms. Gillis just to make sure
Yep.
that we're all set. But
Well, short of a requirement, if that's, again, an outstanding issue, we can make a decision on that as well.
Correct.
And say it does not need to be enclosed, as long as we're not stepping on anybody's toes
Yeah.
in terms of,
Right.
if they have a rule about it, then that's their rule, and they're not gonna deal with that. But if it's a question of ambiguity about those kind of dumpsters versus just dumpsters in general,
Yeah.
I don't see, you know,
yeah, 'cause you can imagine a facility like that, having regular dumpsters for the trash just wouldn't work. So on the right-hand side of the building, the bump out with the garage door, that's where all the trash compactor is. The truck pulls in, takes the roll-off off, goes away, everything's covered. No trash, no garbage, no odor. Well, but we'll work those things out. But like I said, I just wanted to, because we hadn't been in, and I just wanted to come in and bring you up to speed. The I&I inspection on the sewer is not a very inexpensive item to do. We had to bring a company in from Boston. They have to go down into an active sewer, plug it up, do a pressure test, make sure there's no leaks. And the town engineer was satisfied with that, so. To me, was the biggest hurdle to overcome. That was, I didn't agree with it, but it wasn't an unusual, it wasn't an,
Bruce?
my client said, fine, he would be happy to do it, even though it wouldn't have been something that they caused. If there was infiltration in the sewer line, it's the original sewer line wasn't constructed properly, so nothing we could do about it. But to move the ball forward, he said, yeah, let's go, we'll do it.
All right, very good. We'll open up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, we have a continuation for 7:05 on 11/28. Do we have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made, of a second?
Second.
Motion made second, all those in favor signify by saying
All
aye.
right,
All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, we'll see you on the 28th.
all right.
With my black shirt.
All right, that brings us to old business. Any
Yep.
old business anyone wishes to discuss?
I want, make sure you read that.
Okay.
That'll be,
All right, the new business, any new business anybody wishes to discuss?
Well, I think maybe old business, Mr. Fowler, as far as treehouse, did you want to bring that issue up at all?
oh, absolutely. Well, I thought they were, yes.
They're coming
Yes.
in next meeting, but,
Yeah, all right.
so,
I was down in the vicinity of the country club, and I had the displeasure of seeing a new paint job on the old, I guess it was a beauty salon / office, whatever it was. And it's gone from the building that was similar in nature and style and color of the country club to all black. I asked Alex, I talked to a few people, and I talked to Mr. Fratalia, and I actually, that same day, I ran into Mr. Ginsburg. He's very upset about it, but it's not his building anymore. But he still has a contract with him till the 31st of this year as far as the weddings, et cetera, that are scheduled. So he wanted to make sure that the main building wasn't touched up in the manner that the small building was. And they were gonna do it. So I guess he was able to postpone that. But it still gets down to it. We all know that. You probably haven't heard this as often as we have, but people call that the Jewel of Tewksbury. It's a building that was built in a manner and style and looks that is conducive for eye appeal. I can remember first being in that building with a bunch of firefighter compatriots of mine when it just opened up. And we were sitting in the back, and I'll bore you with this, so we were sitting in the back before the addition of the Tumac Tavern was put on, where it was bigger, where it's bigger now than it was then. And we're all sitting up there on the balcony, looking out at the golf course. And we're looking at each other and saying, jokingly said, so this is Tewksbury. Well, it's still there, and that part is bigger, but it's going to change. People drive by, I have relatives who have stopped me and said, what a beautiful building you have in Tewksbury. We're gonna have a wedding there. I was in that building. Fantastic. Well, we can't stop them from doing what they're going to be doing inside the building. But when they brought the plan for the addition to the small building out front. There was no color on it, and I'm not sure that they even have to now, that the rules have changed. But it's a disappointment because not only did they paint the building black, the only thing of consequence that stayed is the little pieces of copper across the drip edge on the window, the top of the window, and some of the copper on the roof. Other than that, they painted black over the new windows. You can see the black plastic inside. There's no inserts in the windows so when you drive by, you see their windows, those windows that we asked to be put in, because when they submitted the plan, as you know, it was just 3 square walls. Well, we couldn't, I guess they didn't understand what we didn't like. Well, they put the windows in, but you might as well not have, because now there's nothing but black. No trim in the windows, even if it was light gray, if that's their motif, although it's not on the other buildings, that when they submitted plans to their present buildings around the country, nothing looked like that. So, I don't know what we could do, maybe nothing. But I would let it be known, and for some reason, I thought they were coming in tonight for the sign. Well, I would never hold up someone for one thing because they didn't have another. I would never hold up that company for the sign that they need because of what I'm upset about with what they're doing with the building. So, I don't know, I can't say any more about it. It's not gonna look the same, that something we've enjoyed for approaching 20 years. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
I would say that on the point is well taken, that if somebody comes in, if an applicant comes in with a rendering and the end result ends up being substantially different, I don't know that we as a planning board can actually weigh in much on the aesthetics of the building, like you say.
Yeah,
I think, but that being said, we want to avoid, and I'm not saying that this has happened in this case, but we certainly want to avoid something you may call a bait and switch. We're gonna put this building up, it's gonna look like this, but then when all of a sudden it goes up, it looks, quite a bit different. We wanna try to avoid that. But, yeah, the color is definitely different. But unless we as a board can get involved in what we think buildings should look like outside of the, our purview, I don't know that there's much we can do about that.
Well, the only thing I'd say, I don't know if it is out of our purview necessarily, but someone's gonna have to dig out the permit.
Alex has.
You know what I mean? It's gonna depend on what that says.
You mean the original permit?
Or any, well, I mean, I guess any amendments to it, but if there's gonna be anything, it's more likely to be in the original permit, that somehow language may have come into it that may have said, looking as it does in the plans kind of thing, which you could potentially hold it up to and say, well, the permit is conditioned upon a certain look.
Correct.
You are not, what you may be trying to do, because again, they're not bringing that in front of us because they don't have to.
Right.
Maybe they do, if it's something like a drastic change to what it looks like, because that building is, has a permit. And that permit may or may not have something in it that makes some reference to how it looked when it was presented. And if you deviate drastically from that, you know, aesthetically,
Yeah.
maybe it's something we could at least
Yeah.
force a conversation about.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but thank you, Mr. Chairman, you're right. But correct me if I'm wrong. When they bring a package in, and the package, as Mr. Duffy says, references a rendering, the rendering is part of the file. And
Yeah.
that's part of that's,
I mean, the only thing with the rendering is if we, you know, if you're not overly specific about the things, like we are when we say things about like, you know, the fake windows and those kind of things. You know, we're making very specific references to certain things, but if the language that went in, you know, makes some reference to something like that, because a lot of times our permits don't make reference to the renderings as they do the plans themselves. If the plans included colored versions within the
They do.
package, that's fine, but I mean, those ones that they bring in that are like kind of those side ones that we look at,
Yep.
but they aren't necessarily officially part of a plan set, those might be a little harder to impose on, but if they're in the package, they're
Yeah.
in the plan package, yeah, I would argue at least,
yeah,
certainly in the interest of having a conversation about
Yeah.
it, that if they're in the plan package, then that was what was approved.
if I may, it was in the original plan package, the addition for the Tumac Tavern plan package, the addition for the office, 2 additions for the office, and, actually, when they put the building out front, the one that's now black.
Yeah.
So there's
I mean,
an abundance of
Yeah, I
it.
mean, obviously, you know, I'd love it that it looked exactly like it did, but again, we have a new company and they have whatever they have for their vision. But it doesn't mean that even if you were going to use black, again, as a color, that there isn't a way to do that in a way that still can be
Yeah.
pleasing.
Right.
If that's, but it, you know, it may possibly require us to say, we're okay with that version under the permit that you're using to operate there. You know, some of the
Mr.
folks,
Mr.
some of
Chairman.
the folks downstairs maybe could let us know if my view of that is accurate or not, and then we could potentially
No,
bring that up with
Yes,
Treehouse when they come in to discuss.
Right.
You know, not conditioned upon that, just because they happen to be here, let them know that that might be something we're interested in having a conversation about, separate from, obviously, their sign issue. But, you know, since they're in the building, you know, if that is an accurate statement,
yep.
that maybe they should plan to have a
Good.
conversation with us.
And if we have to, we could talk to, if it gets to it, we could get to town council
Right,
and find out the legs we have to stand on.
right. I mean, I'll be honest, obviously, this thing predates me, so there's only one person on the board who could possibly have been here when the country club was approved, so.
So, Mr. Chairman, one comment I have, and Mr. Fowler called me about that, and I said, Mr. Fowler, I got a number of phone calls as well as far as complaints about the color. I'm like, so I did take a look at it. I think we specifically said to them that the full windows that are on the side of the building as you go up the ramp is what we were looking to have as.
To break it up,
Huh?
to break it up.
To break it up.
Yeah.
That were there, very similar to break it up to make it appear like there's windows in that particular cooler section. And I thought we were specific about that, you know, with some detail in the window to make it look like a window.
Right.
Now it's completely black with glass that's painted black as well, I believe.
Now, the plastic inside is,
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it, but I mean,
Yeah.
so it doesn't show the detail that I guess a window would look like with a trim on the outside and maybe some slats that, window
Inserts,
slats,
yeah.
inserts, whatever they call them, yeah, so I mean, so for that, I mean, I think it would look a lot better if that was the case and the trim was painted a different color, but everything is black, so.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to add to that too and say that, for every person that that hates the color, there's another person that's gonna like it.
Yeah.
And, that's why they make chocolate and vanilla. But that being said, there is a possibility that we could be looking at that a little out of context too. And would it be appropriate to maybe ask Alex town planner to maybe do a little outreach and see maybe what their plan is for the rest of the project and see if they're interested in you know, and just making a short presentation to the board.
Yeah,
Maybe in conjunction with their sign application, if possible, and, you know, just give the, you know, just say that we're fielding some questions, people aren't crazy about the color, they have some curiosity as to what the project's gonna look like down the road, and would they be interested in, you know,
I'm only a little leery in that I don't want anything to feel like it's connected to the sign, because
okay,
that's its own thing, and
No.
Yeah.
nothing should be
No,
conditioned on
okay.
that,
yeah,
but whatever's involved with the sign. But I would like to see if what Mr. Fowler and I were just discussing, because having them come in here and present to us something they do not have to present to us because we don't have a role, feels a little weird.
yeah,
That presentation could be done elsewhere. It could be done with the Board of Selectmen or whatever. I'm not sure if we're the right place for it unless we have a role or possible role to play in it. Then I'd feel comfortable about saying, you know what, you guys might wanna bring this thing in, because the last thing you're gonna wanna do is spend a lot of money on all of this and then find out we're gonna tell you you have to come in, after the fact. That's just not the way you wanna probably do it, if you can avoid it.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. For everybody's edification, as I said, I talked to Mr. Ginsburg, and it was a coincidence, driving down the street and he's pulling out of his driveway. And I said, oh my God. Well, I'm gonna ask him. So I did, and we discussed, we had a half-hour discussion. And he actually said, to answer a question you had, they wanted to paint the main building black, same as that other building. Same way. And he asked them, said, look, I've got weddings and functions coming in, and they are coming here for that look, not that look.
Absolutely.
You think a bride's gonna wanna come in here and stand with her entourage in front of a black building or that building?
That isn't what they're contracted for.
That's correct. So that's why,
well,
Mark,
they just may not wanna have them paint the working on the scaffolding out there during their daughter's wedding,
yeah,
you know? So, you know, they don't want it to look like the money pit.
no, no. So, are you going to, would you talk to Alex, or would you like me to?
It's either way, it doesn't make any difference to me.
Yeah, because I already broke the ice with Alex when I last week on Monday or Tuesday, and she looked up the file to find out what we had for that building. And it was a colored rendering for the addition too. So there's a plan for that building, and I'm looking at it right here. And,
I remember the color.
Thank you. yeah, and the rendering just is an addition on that. And all we asked them to do was put windows in instead of the 3 blank walls to break it up.
In fairness, my recollection is though, when they had the 3 blank walls, that the architect told us that he just did that the night before. He was asked to do that particular rendering the night before.
But they weren't putting windows in.
Right,
No,
right.
no. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll talk to Alex and see if she can dig out the permit that controls the actual main building
Correct.
and see where we may or may not
Yeah,
have a little
Yeah.
leverage to have a conversation.
very good.
All right, sounds good.
Now, on that subject, before we close that off, Mr. Chairman, renderings in general, aside from the Country Club project, are we thinking along the lines of maybe encouraging applicants to ensure that their rendering is going to look like the actual end project?
Well,
Usually
that's up
does.
to us. We typically will comment on the renderings and say things along that exact line.
Yeah.
You know, we want it to look like this.
Yeah.
Once that happens, and provided that the language falls into the permit, in those cases, I'd argue that those things are part of what we're approving. What my comment was, if they're in a plan set, then that's definitive, because they're in the plan set that's filed. The renderings sometimes, like, we've had the, occasions where they've come in and the cars are on the wrong side of the street, and, the renderings are to a point, obviously, they're not an exact science all the time, but, when we make comments about specific things like full windows, or, the porticos, or whatever that kind of thing, and we're referencing the renderings that are there, or we ask them to bring a rendering in to now show something like that, at that point, I think it's reasonable to say that, when you look at the record, we are expecting it to look like that. We do not always make comments about colors of things. That's sometimes specific though. Like when I know we've gotten plans and I've made a comment, is that gonna be the color? Because a lot of times they'll bring in the renderings, they'll say, no, that's not the color we're going with, that's just for the rendering, because they just did the rendering just to get it done. And we'll make a comment that says, that's not gonna be, canary yellow, right? And they'll be, no, it's gonna be, gray or something like that. And then that's in the record, and that comment is covered, in terms of the coloring. But, sometimes we do make that comment because they'll bring in a rendering, they're worried about the shape.
Yeah.
They're not as worried about the colors.
Right.
And then we'll see it and sometimes go, that's not what you mean though, right?
Yeah,
They do it with the signs sometimes.
right.
And they're just doing it because they need something to show us.
Right.
And they forget sometimes that, it'll catch our eye and see, oh wait, that's not a color we're gonna be okay with. And then, more often than not, they'll say, no, that's not the color. And then you look in the plans, somewhere in the plans, you see the color listed on one of the plan sheets. It's just, you're not always digging that deep into
Right.
detail, because you have to have a rendering in front of you, so.
So now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we delete renderings as a requirement for the plans now?
I honestly, I don't remember if it's
I
deleted.
thought there was something that we weren't
It may be
required to
that-
do renderings, but I think, I agree, I love renderings myself, because it gives you a better view of it, but, so, I mean, we
If
should review that.
they're out, it doesn't stop us from asking
No.
for them.
Right.
It just means that they're not required to do them whether we want them or not, kind of thing.
Plus, this is ancient. This is, we have renderings of this,
Yeah.
of the one we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll give, not to wrap this up, but we had a building that was built in Tewksbury, and, with a plan, and they showed it, and on Main Street, fast food restaurant, I'm not gonna say the name, but blah, 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 blah. And, all of a sudden, they decided to paint it white. It was a brick building, it was, brick building on Main Street, because we were trying to get all buildings on Main Street brick, the brick look. A lot of people think it's classy, and I do too, but they came in one weekend and painted it white, all over the brick. Guess what? They steam cleaned, they power washed it off, back to the brick, because we said, you can't have that, a white building. You came in here with the type of brick, I forget what it was, but you would know.
Like a split faced or a.
Type
or
of
a-
brick?
or
Yeah.
water struck or,
It had a little white in it, but anyways, they painted it white over the brick, gone. It's back to what it was when they built the building. So it worked then, but we had more clout then, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, let's not discount our quote.
No, yeah.
All right, so I think we've got our, how we wanna go forward on that. So I think that takes care of old and new, so we'll move on to correspondence. So our correspondence includes a legal notice for a marijuana establishment meeting that's being held on November 29th at the Holiday Inn, Tewksbury.
Yeah.
This is for 1693 Shawshene Street, so you'll find that notice elsewhere as well, but since it was in our package, we'll mention it. We also had a letter from Soldier On, updating us on match grants that they received from the John Bon Jovi Soul Foundation and New England Patriots Foundation to.
And the Kraft,
What's that?
and the Kraft Foundation.
What, did I miss that?
Bob Kraft, right, yeah, Patriots?
Yeah, that's right, I said the New England Patriots Foundation, I didn't see Kraft specifically on there. Like a third one, but either way, they're getting matching funds from those entities. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Mr. Shia?
Well, I was aware of that fact, and how it came down was Soldier On does a program with John Bon Jovi down in the New Jersey facility, I think it is, and then
Yep.
they would discuss the possibility of helping him in Tewksbury, and he said, absolutely, I would love to help you guys in Tewksbury, and I will reach out to Mr. Kraft as well, because he's a Massachusetts-based Patriots organization, and he did, and they both agreed to help, and I couldn't be happy with the fact that both of those foundations are looking to help us. Can't hurt us, I'm sure, and I think they'll provide us some additional fundraising down the road, hopefully, you know, and then we were also awarded $250,000 from the State Economic Development Program, I believe, that's coming for Soldier On as well. Mr. Feingold, Mr. Robertson, and Tram Nguyen, I believe, also worked on getting that funding for the Soldier On project on Main Street. So we're cracking away, getting more and more funding as needed. I was hoping we didn't have to go that route, but we are. So, but hopefully with the funding coming along, we'll be breaking ground in the spring. So.
That's great news, Vinnie.
You good? Excellent. All right, no other correspondence, so with that, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So, second.
A motion made second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
All those opposed, motion carries, see you on the 28th. Good night.
Have a great Thanksgiving.